So, WWE Extreme Rules. Now, normally what I do when a WWE pay-per-view comes around is I clog up my Twitter feed with 1,000 posts about it. So I figured instead of doing that, I'll just jot down some notes and put them in one video, and that'll be less egregious. So I wrote some notes on how I feel. Overall, I think it was a solid pay-per-view, but let's start with the pre-show. Basically, you have Cass getting one over on the Dudley Boys. That's lovely entertainment. Cass is fucking gold. He'll be especially gold when Enzo comes back. I'm still counting the minutes until that happens because it was borderline tragic when Enzo got hurt because I was begging for months for Enzo and Cass to go to the main roster, and it kind of sucked that their push got halted. So I think it's very smart on WWE's part, and I don't say that a lot, very smart on WWE's part to let Cass continue his push. There's probably going to be a lot of ums and, sighs and whatever here because it's 11:04 and I've already had some melatonin and I didn't even watch Thrones yet, so, and I have work tomorrow, so I'm probably going to not be, great. Then you will have Baron Corbin versus Dolph Ziggler, and I don't want to be a broken record because I'm sure that you've heard this plenty of times, but can these matches please stop? First of all, I'm a big Dolph Ziggler fan. I think that he is underrated. I think that he is very technically sound. I think that he has a decent amount of charisma. I think that he's one of those guys who can put on a good match with a broom. In fact, he's done it a lot of times. He often saves matches, like that Elimination Chamber match. I forget what year that was, but where he basically coached everybody through that fucking disaster. You have him against going Baron Corbin, which is one of the first of the new wave of guys to come up from NXT, and that one confused me because to me Baron Corbin was always kind of a snooze. I was never that into him, but if people liked him, people wanted him up. This is doing him no favors, having him constantly be in pre-show matches with the same guy. So I think that Ziggler deserves better. I think that there are a lot of people that think that Corbin deserves better. So who cares? Corbin won, right? But who gives a fuck? It was not a great match. Just make it stop. Make it stop. They both deserve better. Opening up the pay-per-view was Gallows and Anderson versus the Usos. I wasn't big into the match, honestly. I feel like the Club is a fucking stupid name. I feel like I just don't like the feud. And it's not even because I particularly dislike the Usos. It's just that you have these big free agents in, and you have them feuding with, like, a fucking mid-card tag team. And, I don't dislike the Usos, but, the Bloodline storyline, I get what they're doing, having it be, like, the 6-man feud instead of the 2-man feud between Roman Reigns and AJ Styles. And I get it, but I feel like the people who are getting the shortest end of the stick here, it's great for the Usos. Because they're getting a fucking monumental push, which sees them being nowhere near the fucking tag title picture, which I can be behind that. But, I just feel like Gallows and Andersons are the ones right now, at least until Finn Balor comes up, that are really getting the short end of the stick here. A feud where they maybe turn on AJ and become a dominant tag team with Finn Balor as, a heel 3-man group. I could see that working, but right now I just don't like the spot that Gallows and Anderson are in. And a lot of that didn't have to do with the match itself. The match itself was fine. And if the Usos won, I would have been upset. But I will tell you one thing, that Gallows and Anderson winning made me really worried about, the odds of AJ winning. So the next match was Rusev versus Kalisto, and I was pleasantly surprised that they had the balls to let Rusev win. You figure it would affect their mask sales, but, Kalisto being the US champion isn't what was fucking selling the masks. But, I just didn't like Kalisto as U.S. champion, much to, the chagrin of what my nephews would probably say on the subject, because they love him. But I just don't think he was a compelling U.S. champion. You have this will they, won't they weird relationship with Sin Cara that they just push aside, and then he's there, and then he's not. That thing they did on Raw last week where Alberto Del Rio beat the shit out of Sin Cara and made, like, Kalisto watch was like, alright, so the League of Nations are back, or are they not? Or with this completely unnecessary angle. So have there be a feud between Sin Cara and Kalisto, that's fine. But as for the match itself, the first note is that Lana is just fine. She is lovely. Kalisto is always good for fun spots. I enjoy watching his matches. I just didn't think he was a compelling champion because he was just fucking losing so much. And I know that they are trying to book Kalisto as being the next Rey Mysterio. Well, good fucking job, because he's just about as compelling a champion as Rey Mysterio was, with all these losses in singles matches. I just don't like Kalisto's treatment as champion, and I wanted Rusev to win. I think that Rusev should have won, but he should also go through a bit of a character change at this point. I mean, you see his interviews, on the WWE website and the YouTube channel and all that, and he's actually a very well-spoken, kind of cocky, he's a good talker. He's actually, he's decent, when he's allowed to talk, and I think that would be a better position to kind of move him into, because Rusev Machka is kind of getting a little, tired, and I think that having Rusev kind of come back as still this dominant force, but this one who can also, talk a bit and assert his dominance on his own without, Lana being his soundboard is good, because it's also good for Lana. I know that the WWE always flirts with this push for Lana, and then they pair her with Rusev, and then they don't, and then they'll let him feud with a fucking Bella Twin or some garbage, and then, on, off. I think it'd be good for Rusev to have his own voice, and for Lana to start competing and, learning how to wrestle on her own. Everybody loves Lana. Is there anybody who dislikes Lana? But I think that it would be good for, Rusev for them to be unpaired. And another note with the, Rusev thing, no more League of Nations. Get fucking Alberto Del Rio as far away from him as humanly possible. I don't know what happened on Raw where Alberto Del Rio helped him win. Hopefully they'll just write that off as some inadvertent one-time thing. No League of Nations. And also, I hope they didn't just give the title to Rusev to give it to fucking Cena when he comes back. I don't dislike John Cena, but I want to see Rusev have a legit run as champion. The match we had after that was the New Day versus the Vaudevillians for the World Tag Team Championships. And, regrettably, I didn't get to see this one live because the fucking network crashed on me about 8 times. But I know that the New Day won, and thank God for that. Not even whether you like the New Day or hate them. I know they're very, very, very over now, but it took them a little bit to get to be this over. There's probably still some stragglers who are not fans of the New Day, and that's fine. But having them lose to the Vaudevillains would make zero sense. There is this thing where sometimes you have these teams or these people whose gimmicks work on NXT, and they just don't notice, they just don't, work on the main roster. But they didn't even work in NXT. I mean, was there anybody who was ever super into the Vaudevillains? I didn't get them coming up with Enzo and Cass. I really didn't get the competition. I mean, it was a blessing now because the New Day had opponents for the fucking match tonight, which they wouldn't have had with Enzo and Cass because Enzo wound up getting hurt. I guess if you read too much into it, because then they wouldn't have been facing the Vaudevillains if the Vaudevillains didn't come up. Don't listen to me. But, yeah, the Vaudevillains winning just would have been dumb. They're just never gonna work. I'm afraid to say. They're never gonna work. I didn't think they worked on NXT. If there was a comment section I missed somewhere of a group of people that were super into the Vaudevillains, I missed it because I never knew anybody that was into them. As far as I know, as far as main roster talent right now, the only stable that deserves to beat the New Day is Enzo and Cass. Whenever Enzo gets back. I'm really hoping that as over as Cass is right now, they put him back with Enzo because it's only going to get better from there. A feud between Enzo and Cass would never work. Them being separate would never work. They are the tag team to actually compete with the New Day. I mean, they are so good. They are so good. And for people who only watch WWE and never really watch NXT, I regret that you've only got a relatively short sample size of them so far because they are really, really good. After that, we had the match that everybody fucking knew was going to be the match of the night going in. The Fatal 4-Way between Cesaro, The Miz, Sami Zayn, and Kevin Owens. This was, I mean, it was obvious that it was going to be the match of the night. It wasn't going to be any better than this, no matter what. Definitely the match that I look forward to the most, and mostly it was because I really didn't have that much of a preference. I can see any of those 4 men winning and not being upset about it. I know that some people are probably upset about what happened. I was fine with any of those guys winning. I mean, those are all technically skilled guys that are anywhere between competent and amazing on the microphone. To me, fucking cat's going nuts out there. To me, the Intercontinental Championship is what it's always been, which was the Great Workers Championship. It was when Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart were fighting over it. It's still the Workers Championship now. Anybody could have won that, and it would have been totally fine. My personal favorite of the 4 is Kevin Owens, just because he's technically brilliant. Out of the 4, he's the best on the microphone. I feel like he works any way you try to use him. He can be a face, he can be a heel, he can do whatever you want. He's gonna be an absolute joy to watch. His feud with Sami Zayn has been absolute perfection. Easily the best feud that the WWE has. It's probably the longest running right now out of the feuds that work, with Sami Zayn coming up right before WrestleMania. It's been brilliant since then. That match with a Payback was great. Sami Zayn, for his credit, is, again, very technically skilled, a freakish athlete, and he might be the best in-ring storyteller that they have. I mean, you have to look no further than that match he had with Nakamura, where they didn't even meet each other, on camera before that match. So, from a storyline perspective, it had no right to be captivating, but it was, and a lot of that had to do with Sami Zayn, his facial expressions, the way he moves, the way he uses the ropes. I mean, just everything that he does is so deliberate that he makes any match just a joy to watch in the ring. And then you have Cesaro, who's technically brilliant, he's strong, he's powerful, he's getting a lot better on the mic, which was, the thing that was holding him back in, I guess, Vince's eyes. He's getting better on the mic. That tearaway suit thing that he has is just a fucking... It's amazing. I was nobody had like their main gimmick has been a tearaway suit before. A little James Bond thing going on. It's great. And as for The Miz, it's probably the most controversial pick. But for me, The Miz went from mercilessly overrated to mercilessly underrated really, really quickly. I mean, he was always technically fine. He was always good on the mic. And then at some point, he just fucking got buried bad. So, having Zack Ryder have his moment at WrestleMania was really nice. I feel like it ended for him way too quickly, as much as anybody. But seeing The Miz actually, having a belt around his waist, it's something that was positive for me. So, although I'm going way too long on this, I'm just trying to explain how, before the match, I really didn't have a preference on who was going to win. I knew it was going to be a great match. I knew I wasn't going to be pissed at the end, as long as Maurice didn't end the match somehow. I wanted Maurice to have her moments where she, got involved, because otherwise I don't want anybody in a wrestling match just standing there doing nothing. So I wanted her to have a moment where she helped The Miz, a moment or two. I just didn't want her to be the reason the match ended. The match opened up with that great spot where Sami Zayn immediately hit Owens with a hula kick. You can just see like the hatred, how much he wanted to just get that out of his system right away. And then you have the uppercut to The Miz. So you have Cesaro and Sami Zayn starting off the match. Two brilliant in-ring performers. Could only go up from there. It was great to watch them both. Everybody kind of had their moment. Zayn had the hula kicks. He had his Blue Thunder Bomb. He had his moments. Cesaro had his string of uppercuts. He got his... he started the match. He got his spin move in. He hit that triple superplex again. The springboard corkscrew. So you made Cesaro look really good. The Miz had his moments. Obviously, he ultimately won the match. KO had that fucking great corner chain with the sentons. Everybody had their moment. Everybody looked really good. Everybody told their story. Really, it was exciting. The crowd was into it. I counted 5 "This is awesome" chants, a "Fight Forever" chant, "This is wrestling" chants. I mean, everybody was all about this match. I'm glad that the WWE Universe notices as much as the smart marks that these guys are really the future of this company. These guys are the spine. They're the backbone. You even had some yes chants thrown in there because, of course, you did. There were a lot of really good spots. You had Cesaro holding, I think it was the Miz up for Frog Splash from Owens. That was really cool. A great reversal spot between Owens and Cesaro. Every near fall had an impact. None of them felt artificial. The main event kind of suffered from that a little bit, where there was just a couple too many near falls. In this one, there were a lot of them, but they all had weight. They all had impact. None of them annoyed me. Maurice did help the Miz at a couple points, but it wasn't egregious. You have the hate that Sami Zayn has in his heart for Owens superseding his desire to win the Intercontinental Championship, which, again, can continue a feud with them because Kevin Owens can once again say, "You screwed me because you were too busy trying to get to me than stopping the Miz from getting that pin." So you have a beautiful grudge match that can once again be between Owens and Zayn, which will never get boring. You have The Miz still retaining his championship, which is fine by me, and you have Cesaro probably being the guy who's going to be the number 1 contender going up against him, which is just set up for another great match or another great string of matches. Really, there was nothing to complain about on this one. I mean, there was really nothing. At the end, what it resulted in was the best match at the WWE level this year, as far as I'm concerned. Probably going over the Zayn Owens match from the last pay-per-view, if for no other reason because this one had 4 people, and Fatal 4-Ways are usually a mess, and there's usually some kind of fuck-up or some lull. This one, every single second of it was something worth watching, and to me, it was just taking what was great about the Zayn and Owens match and multiplying it by 2. As for neither Zayn or Owens getting the belt, for me, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, this feud is bigger than a title. I mean, it's been going on for so long, you could see that there is a hatred for each other. And this can go on as grudge matches, which is great for WWE because all of a sudden, these title pictures are getting a little tiny bit crowded. So having a couple different chunks of people who are totally viable just having grudge matches and not necessarily competing for a belt is nothing but a good thing. At least until there's another brand split, if they're ever brave enough to do that, but I doubt it. But right now, that feud is just going to go on forever. And Cesaro, going for the title instead of one of those two is something that I would be totally fine with. A+ match. Great fucking match. Staying on the subject of a guy who I don't necessarily think needs to be competing for a title, we have the Asylum match between Chris Jericho and Dean Ambrose. And Dean Ambrose, to me, is another one of those guys who doesn't need a championship. I want you guys, all you people who are upset that Dean hasn't won the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, I want you to close your eyes and picture Dean Ambrose with the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Doesn't it just seem a little odd? I feel like he would just look weird. I feel like that's against what Dean Ambrose is about. I think Dean Ambrose is much better suited being a niche product, being a guy that you root for but doesn't need to have a championship to even eventually be a Hall of Famer, be a Jake the Snake type. You can have him be a Mick Foley type where, for the he doesn't need a title match, but you have him win a couple just as, those really feel-good moments. But Dean Ambrose doesn't need the World Heavyweight Championship to validate who he is. It's not really his character. If anything, I would bring the Hardcore Championship back for him, or have him have some kind of ironic personal belt, because that would fit his style. I wouldn't hate those things. I don't think, as far as, I'd much rather see a guy like KO, a guy like Sami Zayn, even Cesaro, even though he's probably going to be competing. I'd rather see those guys go on to the next level and start competing, especially, but now that I think about it, you also have Orton coming back, you have Rollins coming back, you have Cena coming back, so the World Heavyweight title picture is cluttered. I think that Dean Ambrose is the kind of guy you have doing something else and it being fine. On the other side, you have a guy like Chris Jericho, who's a guy that I like a lot. I think he's the kind of guy that you take somebody who's aimless, somebody that you like, that doesn't necessarily have a storyline, and you put him against Jericho. They did it with AJ Styles before they had a real role for him, and you do it with Dean Ambrose because Jericho is the kind of guy who always shows up at pay-per-views, and he's one of the few great heels left in the business, like a true heel. So he's the guy that you put when you just want to know that you're going to have good matches, and you don't have a role otherwise for the other person. And that's a really important role to have, and I think that Jericho fits it beautifully, and I've always respected Jericho for that. Somebody gets over a big feud and you have to get him another one, put him against Chris Jericho, and then you'll have, Michaels versus Jericho and have it be one of the greatest feuds of fucking all time. When I first heard of the match, the Asylum Match, I of course originally thought that when I wasn't looking, WWE rehired fucking Vince Russo, but apparently it's like a match that's in TNA, and as for like a one-off match, or a match that's specific to one person or something, I don't think it's the worst idea. A cage where the object is to get a pinfall and beat the other to death with weapons rather than escape. It's kind of a concept that I don't know will ever work in PG WWE, though. And I don't know if it should continue. Now, the elephant in the room was that the crowd was just not into this match. And I saw a lot of tweets that were saying there's no reason why this match should be boring, but it is. For some reason, it's boring. First of all, a lot of it has to do with the crowd, which I think was very fatigued from how awesome the match before it was. But also because this match, in a lot of ways, didn't understand what makes Extreme Rules or ECW fun. And it's not the weapons, and it's not necessarily the blood or the carnage or the this and that. It's the big, fun spots. The spots that make your jaw drop, that kind of take your breath away, like, oh my god, how did that happen? This match didn't have those spots until the very, very end. And it was a very long match. I don't know the exact time of it, but it was probably at least 20 minutes. And if it was a similar formula. Fight, you go up, grab a weapon. Fight, go up, grab a weapon. Fight, go up, grab a weapon. I liked that the first fucking weapon that somebody went for was a mop, which was everybody's fear. Like, oh, they're just going to use like the kendo stick, the mop, and the fire extinguisher. It's not going to even be extreme. And made even worse than that is that Jericho at one point took the barbed wire 2x4 down, and then it was laying in the ring for basically 90% of the match with nobody even picking it up until the very end. So in a lot of ways, it was everybody's fear that the really hardcore stuff wasn't going to happen because it was the PG era, so you were going to have a lot of stupid weapons and stuff. So yeah, the first weapon was the mop. Then you had the barbed wire laying in the ring, then it was the kendo stick, then it was that leather strap, which in fairness does look like it hurts, but it was a lot of kind of just beating your opponent down with those boring weapons, and none of it was big, and none of it was like, ooh, oh my god, that's crazy. And that's the reason why it was boring, because there just wasn't, to me, the match before it did a better job of doing what Extreme Rules does well without even having a single extreme moment in the match, but big spots. But then you started getting good ones. That springboard dropkick from Jericho to Ambrose into the cage was decent. And then finally you had the spot where Ambrose jumps from the cage, an elbow onto a standing Jericho. That was a pretty decent spot, and that woke up the crowd for like a second. But really the problem was it was like 15 to 20 minutes of the crowd being completely out of it before the good stuff started happening. After that spot, which was pretty good, you had the barbed wire finally. Somebody used that. It was all torso shots. Nobody got punctured by that. Then they revealed that the bucket had thumbtacks in it. That was cool. So you finally had a spot, a pretty decent amount of tension where you were wondering who was going to be the one that wound up in the thumbtacks. Were they going to go PG and nobody was going to go into it? But finally, Jericho goes into it. You finally get a couple holy shit chants. It took till the very fucking end of the match to get a single holy shit chant. It was the only one of the entire night. I mean, for Extreme Rules, it was not very extreme. But you have Ambrose, Dirty Deeds going over. It's good that Ambrose finally has a string of big wins. You know, as much as I don't think that Ambrose needs to be competing for a title, he was losing way too much. So, you know, if you're nuts but you keep losing, then it loses its impact. You want people to actually think that you're dangerous. So, Ambrose going over was good. Overall, it was just an overlong match that didn't get good until the end, but a good final result, and it did have a handful of nice moments. Would have been way better if it just wasn't overlong. It was an overlong match. And then it went straight into a match that was over short, which was the submission match between Charlotte and Nataya. Now, here's going to be my first of two very probably unpopular opinions. What I wanted out of this match was Charlotte to win and to win clean while looking strong. That's what I wanted out of this match. Because as far as I'm concerned, until Nia Jax comes up, Charlotte is the only viable heel in the entire division. I mean, beyond that, and this is what I was thinking before the match, beyond that, who's the other heel in the fucking division? Dana Brooke? Like, she doesn't belong anywhere near fucking match for the women's world title. And then I sighed at the end because that's fucking exactly what they did. But really, the heel woman right now who deserves to be on television is Charlotte until, as like I said, Nia Jax comes up whenever they're ready for her, because I like Nia Jax a lot. And you can have her generate immediate heat by pointing out her relationship with Roman Reigns. But I understand the hate for Charlotte insofar as it is very tiring seeing Ric Flair help her. And, you know, there's other reasons people hate her. I know that people like to comment on her looks, like, fuck you, who gives a shit? But, you know, Charlotte, to me, is technically sound. I like her finisher. I like that figure eight. It's a neat little homage to her father. She has one of the best moonsaults I've ever seen. I mean, it looks like she's in the air forever. She's actually, I know that people call her a very bad seller. In this match, her selling was pretty decent, if a little too exaggerated. You know, the after every move. But, you know, her facial expressions were on point. I think that she's decent enough on the mic where people dislike her for being like a bratty little bitch, which is exactly what she's supposed to be. So I think that she's good in the ring. I think that she is a good heel. And you need a good heel at the top of the division. The face can't be the fucking champion all the time. And she was against Nataya, and Nataya is fucking boring. I'm sorry. She's just, there's nothing compelling about her. Besides, she's technically good. Good technique, but she's piss poor on the mic. It's just, to me, there's nothing compelling about Nataya. If Sasha Banks is hurt and that's the reason why this feud happened, then I guess okay, but what has Sasha Banks out for 2 months? And why is Becky Lynch getting buried? Why is the feud with fucking Nataya? I don't get it. I've never got why Nataya was in any position to be facing Charlotte. I don't get why this feud has gone for as long as it has. So what I wanted was Charlotte to win, but I did not want Flair to help her. I thought it was about time that Charlotte looked strong on her own heading into a good feud, you know, for SummerSlam, where she actually had a decent shot at winning, maybe even turn on Flair and try to go one-on-one with Sasha Banks if she was healthy, or Becky Lynch if they unbury her, those fucking retards for burying Becky Lynch. I don't know what the fuck happened, but that's what I wanted. But those are my before the match thoughts. As far as the match itself, like I said, at the beginning especially, Charlotte was especially loud, and it was kind of distracting me. She would hop over the ropes, she would hop into the ropes, she would, you know, get hit with one move, she would hit a move, Like, I don't know what she was doing there, but it was a little distracting. Maybe that's overanalysis, maybe nobody else thought that, maybe it's just me. Anything's possible, but, you know, I thought that was a little bit distracting. And then Beyond that, I mean, for what wrestling there was, even though the match was way too short, there was good wrestling. A lot of good technique, some clever little submission moves. Didn't really have a problem with that. But when I said that that Dana Brooke shouldn't be anywhere near the picture of a heel at the top of the division, she fucking comes out dressed as Ric fucking Flair and saves Charlotte. And it was everything that I didn't want. It was Dana Brooke being involved in a women's title match. I'm not saying that Dana Brooke is bad, but it's just way too early for her to be getting this push. I get that Emma's hurt, but come on. Way too early. You have Dana fucking Brooke coming out dressed as Ric Flair, saving Charlotte. It made Charlotte look weak. It made fucking Dana Brooke look not even good. She just came out. Then you have Ric Flair celebrating, whatever. The match was too short. They should have cut 10 minutes off the Asylum match and gave it to the submission match. It was over in a blink of an eye. You know, the only prayer... Yeah, it was good that Charlotte won, and my only prayer at this point is that the feud with Nataya is over. As far as I'm concerned, it's more than time for Sasha. Let's have a Sasha-Charlotte match at SummerSlam. I heard that Sasha has a concussion. If that's true, she'll be back in plenty of time to have a good match for SummerSlam, where she finally gets her win against Charlotte. If Sasha's not good enough to go, give the push to Becky. I don't know where the fuck Becky went. Now, I don't know when somebody thought it was a good idea to make Becky Lynch a jobber, but it's less than she deserves. I defended the end of Payback as, you know, a lovely bit of shenanigans, and it was kind of a fucking train wreck, but it was fun. I can't defend the end of this one. I was really disappointed in this. It's not what I wanted from the match at all. I didn't like it. Now we're up to the main event of the evening, and I'm going to give you, again, my pre-match thoughts without knowing what was going to happen, and it's going to be another unpopular opinion. Are you ready? Roman Reigns is not that bad, and he's not bad as champ. And I know that the internet is the internet, and we like having our bandwagons, and I'm not saying that Roman Reigns doesn't deserve some hate, or if you do hate him, that your reasons are wrong or whatever. I get why people dislike him, but the hate bandwagon is ridiculous. It's overboard. Rejecting, I guess, his push more than him himself, I hope, because, again, he himself is not that bad. Again, a lot of it has to do with his look. He looks like your prototypical champ. He's big, he's imposing, but he also is... I love those "you can't wrestle" chants. It's just not true. I mean, he can wrestle. He has a handful of really good stiff moves. You know, that reversal uppercut he likes is a good stiff move. The Superman punch, the spear, the apron moves. He's also strong, so he hits his fucking power bombs. He's not really that much of a botcher. He is, as far as in-ring psychology, he's not bad. Again, his facial expressions, and maybe I'm the only person who notices things like this, but they're always pretty much on point. You know, he's proven himself twice in long matches against AJ Styles, proving that he has stamina. I know that he's had problems, but it was more booking problems, where in like the Royal Rumble he was out of the match for a while and then he came in and that was kind of shitty, but again, that's not his fault. He's proven he can go for long matches. He's powerful. His moves work. He's getting, again, since WrestleMania, to me, he hasn't been that bad on the mic. He hasn't said a lot. He said, "I'm not a good guy, I'm not a bad guy, I'm the guy," 2 times too many. But for the most part, he's done his job. You know, I don't think that anything he's said or has done since winning at WrestleMania has been bad at all. You know, I just think that the hate bandwagon is a little bit much. Not to mention, he's second in merch sales, so he's not going anywhere. So the only thing that I would recommend is a full heel turn at this point. It's like somebody else said, and I wish I remember who it was, but it's better to have somebody be united against a heel than divided against a face. So I think a heel turn for him would, do some good. But I don't mind Roman Reigns being the champion at all. But I also don't mind the idea of AJ Styles winning. I don't know how people talk ill about fucking Roman Reigns' mic skills and then not talk about how bad AJ Styles has been on the mic since he's been here. I'm sorry, but he hasn't cut a fucking good promo since he's been here. Check the tape. Let's be real. I'm not taking anything away from him. His promos have not been good. But, so I didn't care about the end of the match that much as I cared about the Usos and the Club, which is a fucking terrible name. Did I mention that already? Not being so heavily involved. Part of me wishes that they didn't get involved at all. But, because to me, like I said, the Usos Club thing is kind of floundered a bit. I have trouble hating Reigns, so I really cared more about the match and kind of the in-ring story and how they handled the ending more than I cared about the who won. But let me think. Okay, yeah, so now we're on to the match itself. The "you can't wrestle" chants right to straight away. Just right there. I love the I love when the crowd's passionate, even when I disagree with them. It's much better to have people saying something you disagree with than just crickets, like there was during the Ambrose Jericho match. The table to table kind of back body drop was a nice move. That you have the outside bits, back and forth between AJ. For most of the beginning half of the match, it was mostly Reigns dominating. You had the good reversal by AJ on a spear. Reigns, again, sold it really well. That knee issue that he was having, he sold that pretty well immediately and throughout the most of the match for the most. Then you have the spot where Reigns was swinging AJ into the fucking apron and the guardrail and then powerbombed him through a second table. So for the beginning, I was like, oh wow, they're actually going to make AJ look strong. I mean, he already went through 2 tables, so if he can actually, hold his own now, it's finally for the first time you're going to have AJ Styles look strong, which has been one of the problems with this move. AJ just eating a spear and being done, and Roman Reigns fucking getting hammered and keeps getting up. That was a problem at Payback. Spoiler alert, it's a problem here too. And then, like I said, I kind of cringed a bit when the Club and the Usos came out, but that double reversal where the Club hit the Buddha Doom on Reigns and he kicked out, and then the Usos hit the frog splash on AJ Styles and he kicked out. That was decent. And then beyond that, the Usos saved Reigns at one point, but beyond that, they weren't as involved, which was good. I mean, they had that cool spot, which was fine. But then you have fucking Reigns kicking out of 2 Styles clashes, one of which was onto a chair. And then he immediately reverses the fucking phenomenal forearm after a bash of chair shots. And him winning. And like I said, I didn't mind. The match was fun. And I didn't mind the fact that Reigns won. I do mind how weak AJ looks when he hits him with 2 Styles clashes, beats the shit out of him with chair shots. Reigns ate a Buddha Doom, and he still fucking got up. Made Reigns look great, and I don't mind Reigns looking great, but then a spear, and it's over. So that was a problem. AJ, I don't think that AJ should look weak. Again, AJ's not my number 1 choice to be champion, but don't make the guy look weak. Or as weak as you did. It's probably some kind of anti-TNA thing with Vince. I don't know. But, and then the big ending, of course, is Seth Rollins coming back. I don't want to say it came out of nowhere because I knew they were going to do something because there was still like 10 minutes left in the pay-per-view after the end of the match, but I was figuring it was going to be some kind of McMahon thing. That's a positive. There was not a single fucking McMahon storyline in the entire pay-per-view. But Seth Rollins comes out, hits Reigns with the pedigree. That was all lovely. I'm glad that Seth Rollins is back. Hopefully his knee's good. Hopefully he can hit his high-flying spots without having to worry. Hopefully he's a face now. Who knows? I saw a comment that said they would have rather heard the pop from him coming out to his theme song. Little technical details like that are fine, and I agree with them. But overall, I'm just happy to see Seth Rollins back as much as anybody else. So that saved what was kind of a sour end to a good main event. I thought it was very similar to the Payback one. The main event overall was a good, fun match with a shaky ending. So, overall, what were my positives and negatives from this pay-per-view? The first negative is from the pre-show. Corbin versus Ziggler. Make it stop. We don't need it anymore. Beyond that, positive was the bit with Cass getting one over on the Dudleys. Making Cass look strong, keeping him hot while we wait for Enzo to come back is nothing but a good thing as long as when Enzo comes back, there's no hold up in putting them back together. Another positive kicking off the show of shows was the fucking club going over on the Usos. Having the balls to put the US title on Rusev. Didn't think they were going to do it, but they did it, and I appreciate it. And like I said, the one thing that I fear now is that he's just keeping the belt warm for Cena. I hope that's not the case. Straight after that, I didn't see the match, but the Vaudevillians did not win. Thank God. After that, you have the Vaudevillians. Oh no, I already said that. The Fatal 4-Way, which was fucking phenomenal. It was more phenomenal than any other phenomenalness in the entire show. Probably the match of the year at the WWE level so far. Not sure if I'm going to put this ahead of Zayn and Nakamura. Going to have to rewatch that. You have some good stuff from the Asylum match. The jump over the cage spot, the thumbtacks. That's about the extent of it. Ambrose going over is a good thing. But negative, it was overlong. There were too few great spots, which is what you need for a match like that at Extreme Rules. And it was overlong. And they saved all the good spots for the end. Add to that, Charlotte winning was a good thing. Like I said, in the purest form, what I wanted more than anything was Charlotte to win. At the very least, that happened. But it was very badly done, and it was too short. You have Reigns looking strong, and a good match between Reigns and Styles. It was on the longer end, but it didn't really have that many wasted moments. It was a good pace. It was a fun match, and again, reminiscent of Payback in that regard. Seth fucking Rollins is a plus. AJ looking weak again is a minus. It kind of ended on a sour note, the main event itself, so Seth Rollins kind of put that to bed and had the pay-per-view end on a good note, which is fine by me. I guess a negative can be that Finn Balor, Bayley, like nobody like that came back, even though that I don't think anybody expected that to happen at this pay-per-view. And it wasn't extreme in really any sense of the word. Beyond one spot where Jericho fell into the thumbtacks. That was really the only extreme spot. Watching Extreme Rules in the PG era is kind of not great. And I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, the PG era sucks, we have to bring back TV 14 or whatever. I'm fine with the future of the business being guys like Cesaro, Zayn, Owens, guys that put on a phenomenal match without needing Extreme Rules. So, to me, it should either be no more Extreme Rules pay-per-view or have Extreme Rules be the one TV 14 pay-per-view you put on if they have the balls to do that. But overall, I'd give it B minus. It was actually a pretty good pay-per-view. I liked most of the matches. The only match that I didn't like was the submission match. I just feel like it could have been really good, and they screwed it up. I think that if it was a little bit longer, if you didn't have Dana Brooke come out, if you had Charlotte win clean, you could have just had a good technical fight, and it could have ended fine. I really don't know what they're booking there. The main event, for the ending was, again, Reigns too strong, AJ too weak, but the main event overall was fine. I'm wondering, though, with Seth Rollins entering the picture, what is going to be the situation with the club now? Are they just going to become a stable? Is there going to be somebody they're going to feud with? Is AJ going to remain in the title picture? Is the club going to turn on AJ and try to just wreak havoc or go for the tag team champions? There's a lot of questions there. I have no idea. But you know what? The club's been looking really fucking weak lately. They lost clean to the Usos, I think twice. They keep getting their ass kicked, both of them by Reigns. So they're not looking great right now. So anything that makes the club look strong is fine in my book. Yeah, that was it. Ziggler, Corbin has to end immediately. Enzo can't come back soon enough. Still holding my breath for Finn Balor. Hopefully Kalisto's okay. Let me point that out. That match looked like it was supposed to end later. I feel like Kalisto really hurt his back at the end there. So we'll see how that goes. I hope that he's alright. Beyond that, I like it. I thought it was a good pay-per-view. So hopefully this kept my Twitter feed nice and clean. Hopefully people watch this. Hopefully people enjoy this. And bye-bye. 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 Bye-bye.